Paintball nerd.
Today's guest on Paintball Nerd's peak performance interview, well, there's two of them. We have one that started playing paintball in 1999 and went pro with Seattle Thunder in 2018. The other plays semi-pro with Ruthless Factory and started playing paintball in 2000. They're part of Off The Leash. One of them is their founder. The other is the nutrition specialist. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Mr. Paddy Gleason and Marcel Blake.
Hey, too much aloha for one hand. Let's go.
Oh, send it.
Welcome, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Good. Yeah.
Friday.
Good.
I live
Yeah,
for Fridays,
good.
man.
Ready
You guys feeling like? Are you feeling off the leash right now, or how are we feeling?
Hey, that's a constant, man. Come on. You already know.
I just feel like I need to be leashed to my bed for 48 hours, but we're good.
So, I mean, what's going on? What's going on in the paintball world for you, Patty? Who are you playing with next year? This year,
this year, right? This coming up season. As of this moment right now, I'm staying put, man. It's been chilling. I got a baby on the way. So, yeah, the Bears. Yep.
Bears.
As of right now,
Cool.
Nothing has changed, man.
Right on. Marcel, you sticking with Ruthless?
Yeah, we just had a team chat last night. Everyone's on board. We even got a few new bodies to fill out some divisional rosters as well. So this year looks extremely promising. We're sorting out a couple other details. We've gotten some more sponsors on board. So this one looks like a very promising year to keep developing the semi-pro line.
Right on. Well, there's a lot of talk in paintball about the difference between being physically fit and being paintball fit, and they're two completely different things, aren't they?
Yeah, I think there's a yes and a no to that.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely a lot of movement. It's almost like with any other sport, but there are things that we specifically do in paintball that we're just not going to be able to fully 100% replicate in a gym. But the nuance to that is there are movements that we can do in a gym, and especially through Off The Leash Lifestyles training programs that mimic within, I almost want to say 90% true to form, that will be applicable on the field side.
Yes. I am in 100% agreement with that. I think when you confuse like being fit with paintball fit, is just a lack of education behind it, right? I think people will go into the gym and they're doing maybe like the gym's classes that they have, or they're doing a more physique style of training. And then even not even to knock, but even like CrossFit and stuff, you're not really like training through these different ranges of motion and really diving into what is applicable on the field. So I think it's mostly just a translation of what you're doing in the gym and what are you properly preparing yourself for what is actually applicable for the field. And so I think that's just the big difference.
So, gentlemen, how do you condition for peak performance specifically in paintball?
Well, so for as the program designer and the head coach and developer of Off The Leash, everything that I've learned is just like kind of a trickle down effect. So, I've been exposed and am around high performers within my environment that I'm here at the gym. And so I'm able to kind of pick and choose, and not only pick and choose, but kind of see how these guys do the same thing, right? Whether it's an NFL player, Major League Rugby player, I can see how they're programming so that it is the same thing applicable for their field or for their craft. Nothing like what Marcel was saying, nothing like in actual gameplay, things are so chaotic, right? That you're doing different movements that you just can't train for, right? You're going to get exposed to that kind of stuff by gameplay. But there are things that you can train for that's going to assist or enhance those movements, right? And so I think, I might be biased, but since I'm the strength and conditioning coach for Major League Rugby out of here in Seattle. And even though the sport is starkly different, right? I feel that rugby players train at the apex of training because they're just so dynamic. And their sport, it also demands so much out of them. And so that has been super educational for me to do the trickle down effect, to kind of apply it to paintball. And over the course of the few years that I've had Off the Leash and been training paintball players, you got to understand, this is also like, you know, when you're leading the pack and kind of being a pioneer in this paintball quote unquote performance, a lot of it's trial and error. You know what I mean? And I've fallen short many times, but I think we're finding that niche, right, to where it is extremely applicable, right? And like this paintball specific training is more of just a paintball player, paintball athlete identity. You know what I mean? And we will train this certain way, and yes, it will enhance our movements on the field. But by doing that, it's just going to enhance everything else in our life and just be super fit. If you want to just, you know, in layman's term, you're going to be just extremely fit because that's what our sport demands. And that's what we identify with. And so it just, the translation and crossover is just tenfold, whether it's work and family life, paintball. If you're trained properly for paintball, you're going to just be freakishly athletic across the board.
Well, training is 50% of it. Maybe it's less, right? A big part of it is also diet habits. So, gentlemen, what diet habits do you find would be most effective for a top paintball athlete?
So, I mean, really for any top paintball athlete or even just like the divisional, I mean, speaking from like me coming up where I have right now, is biggest thing working with these athletes that we currently have, there's a lot of similarities to clients I have on my own side of the business where we have to look at your lifestyle. And if we can harness that in and we can make a plan and a strategy for you to get the adequate amount of nutrients every day. And that means, yeah, you got to, in Western culture, we are like worldwide, really, we're all we're deficient in protein intake. Like we have to eat more protein. Like that's just across the board. And especially as we look at just not only your lifestyle, because it really doesn't matter like what you're doing outside of the paintball field, because a lot of us may be just weekend warriors. Like that may be just where you're getting it from. But if you're looking to be that top level, you have to look at yourself like any other high performance athlete. And so with that comes with like, hey, carbs aren't evil. Like you need to eat those. Like carbs equal energy. And if they're used properly, even throughout the week, you can still maintain and increase the performance you want, and then increase and better the physique to then better perform.
So would you say it's individual specific, the diet, like it's tailored to the person?
Yes, there's very much so as like just the straightaway answer. There's nuances of like just broad concepts that cover everyone. But when you come down to the person, you really have to I mean, I've got probably 12 clients on board right now just through my own. And each one of them has a very specific plan of what they need to hit week to week.
So something like a tip, like we all need to eat more protein. I think that's something that the listeners could really sink their teeth into. What other broad tip would you recommend?
Sink their teeth.
I like that one.
Yeah, so yes.
You like that, huh? Shows your teeth.
You know, we say protein real broad, and people are like, oh, I'll just go buy protein powder. Well, the nuance to there is like, I'd rather a lot of people eat their macros, their macronutrients, and eat their calories than drink them. Like it's okay that we have a supplement like that, and just like in the name, it's there to supplement what we cannot naturally and wholeheartedly get into our day. So eating more protein would be looking at, you know, chicken, turkey, beef, lean cuts of pork. You know, not to say don't be afraid of like the fattier meats, because those those fats in that process differently in our bodies and better than the processed, deep fried, grease pit fats that you'll find anywhere else.
Right.
You're going to just perform better on that. The other ones would be carbs. we're seeing this rise in gluten intolerance. And even for myself, just recently came out that like, yeah, carbs are like a no-go for me, or as far as like gluten carbs, they're a no-go anymore. And so for myself, when we want to look at cleaner carbs, like honestly, rice, any type of like fruit. And if we're really dialing that in, like my apples and any type of berries are like my go-tos. They're complex carbs with simple sugars. And bro, like, your body's just going to really, if you're seeing, what I tell my clients is if you're seeing like that standard afternoon energy slump, go grab a cup of strawberries or blueberries instead of that energy drink from the gas station. One, it's cheaper. It's going to last you longer. And your body's going to really love that sugar dump that's coming from the fruit. And then water, like freaking drink your freaking water.
Yeah. I think for tangible kind of takeaways for the listeners right now, to sum up everything that Marcel just said, is definitely eat protein from whole foods. I think preparation before events and even practice weekends is key. So water intake, not just at your practice or at the event. You need to start that days before. And then also like, I always, and Marcel has said this too to our athletes, it's like at the events and stuff like that, like worse, you could be lining everything up perfectly. And then we know that once we hit the event and we're hanging out with the boys, like everything goes out the window. Right. But we're so active and like walking around the event and playing all of that. So just eat. You don't want to fall into a deficit to where then your body, like you're getting sore and everything because your body just isn't having enough caloric intake or, it's not getting the nutrients it needs. I always say any caloric intake is better than none. So it's like, we work with guys who they have that fear of what they eat. I think that goes with a lot of people, the whole psyche behind it, right? So when you're at the events or if you're at a practice where you're not close to home or anything, and, you might not just have the options that you would prefer, just eat. It's better than not eating.
I remember at the end of last year, we had a recent OTL athlete come on the program, and he was all freaking out just because of what Paddy was saying. And he was trying to just eat clean, dial everything in, came to the event. And I threw a hypothetical out of like, well, sometimes your plan's not going to go to the way you want it to. And maybe your team's going to choose to go to Golden Corral. And all of us in our head were like, ooh, that's going to be a hard one. But like in that Zoom call, like I was like, okay, well, hypothetically, you go to Golden Corral. If I'm going there, I'm going to eat, XYZ. I'm going to focus in this area, and I'm still going to just focus on caloric intake, but I'm going to do it in a way that's not, as I tell the athletes, like go out, enjoy yourself, eat that food, but don't make it a dumpster fire. Like the moment the moment that needle switches over to like just a full send dumpster fire, like that's when you're going to wake up the next morning and be like, oh, that was a bad idea. And then you're going to get to the start gate and you're going to feel that shit brick just kind of like drop in your stomach. And you're like, oh, this is a bad day. And you're not going to feel great. And that means you're not going to perform good. And then lo and behold, that athlete goes to the event and then their team decided to go out to Golden Corral. And so he had the perfect strategy in the back pocket of how to navigate that, even though that was completely out of the standard wheelhouse of what he or his team would do in the past.
Right. So instead of like, oh, since we're making a bad decision, I'm gonna order like a hot fudge sundae. May as well because I'm at Golden Corral anyways. I'm already eating bad. It's be intelligent about your eating choices, even when your eating choices may not be ideal.
Right. Yeah. Completely.
You guys touched a bit on hydration, and I know that's a big part of it. And I think, like me and most Americans, we're chronically dehydrated. And, you find yourself at a paintball event pounding waters and you still end up with a headache. How many days prior do you need to start hydrating before you get to a paintball event to actually make it through it?
So if you're not already in the habit of a gallon a day, then you literally need to probably be trying to getting yourself there starting that Monday. Like if it's not a habit, that way you can climb yourself into, because when I served in the Marine Corps, like if there were people going down with dehydration issues, that's a 2-day prior problem. That means 2 days
Right.
before this, you weren't doing your due diligence at a minimum to trying to get a gallon a day. You know,
Yeah.
and there's other supplemental things there, and I know Patty will jump into it too. So.
No, I'm just tagging along with that. I mean, we share a lot of the same views on that, and I would say if you can just, I like that he said if you aren't consistent with it, then this should be the timeline of it. But really, I mean, you should just be in the habit of drinking enough water on a daily basis, so that not only so that you're ready for the events and stuff like that, but the benefits of it that it has for sleep, stress, fat loss. Like, if you're looking for, like, here's a quick tip. I talked to all my registered dietitian friends about this. It's like their number one suggestion for people who come in for fat loss is just to increase their water intake. That alone will help you with fat loss. So it's just like get in the habit of just drinking the appropriate amount of water that you need for your body on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you show up to the event and you haven't been doing that, no amount of Pedialyte and Gatorade and whatever water is gonna help you at that point. It's too late.
Yeah, I mean, at that point too, like the two things here, I'll tag in with Patty, and then I'll jump back to what you were saying. Is the thing is, like, increased water. I've come across this all the time. Like, increasing the water does not lead you to increased water retention of water weight. Those are two separate things of like what that causes. Like increasing your, like, I drink a gallon to a gallon and a half every day. My weight doesn't go up. It doesn't. If anything, it helps me actually process out waste and other things, and then it helps increase the blood flow to get nutrients and other things to keep organs hydrated, ligaments into, like, it helps with all these other plethora of benefits. Then to tag in with the event, it's like, right, sometimes it does, like, if you're behind, there's no matter of water that you can drink, and then when you try to flush your system or increase a bunch of, say, the Pedialyte, the Transfuse, the liquid IVs, like, I'm not going to knock any of those companies because they make a great product, but the problem is if all you're doing is electrolyte packets and water, but your exertion level is so high, all you're doing in the end is actually going to flush all of it out of your system. And so when we're at events, a lot of what I walk the athletes through is bringing snacks or having something with you so that the electrolytes and the vitamins and minerals can attach themselves to something and stay in the system. Things that we want to look at are like anything with some higher fibers. So big three that I recommend is watermelon, honeydew, and cantaloupe. The biggest reasons there is those three melons, one, have naturally occurring electrolytes that we don't have to find in a supplemental synthetic source. Two, they have fiber, and then three, they naturally just have some additive water in it.
Yeah.
But the fiber is the key part. If we're low in fiber, that's another thing. There's not enough attachment within, the nutrients and minerals or whatever for our body to retain and keep to then use.
So it sounds like, caloric intake and hydration, those are non-negotiables. Do you guys recommend, and are there any other training habits or diet habits that are non-negotiables?
Form.
Tell me
Form,
more.
please. Just mastering the craft of movement. You know what I mean? You want to get better on the field. You want to move more fluid on the field. Then you need to practice movement and have good form. And what that means is the 6 foundation movement. You got to have a good press. You got to have a good pull. You got to have a good squat, which is on the big hit list. You got to have a proper hinge, which is on the big hits as well, and a proper lunge. You know what I mean? Just being able to work those movements into your training programs, execute them with immaculate form, your play on the field is going to increase as well. So I think that's definitely on my list for non-negotiables.
Marcel?
Honestly, it's consistency. Like, I definitely tap in with Patty. Like, form is key just because it's going to keep you safe. Like, it's going to keep you doing the right thing. And everyone wants to practice 1,000 snapshots and make sure they're tight, but nobody's working their hinge to make sure that they're going to actually generate the power they need to get off break. So for me, it comes to, like, consistency. Like, you have to be willing to have the discipline to be consistent. And that can lead to part of like your champion's mindset.
I was just thinking too, I guess I'll add another non-negotiable, which got brought up in our chats, in our OTL chats earlier this week, is recovery.
Mm-hmm.
That's a non-negotiable for me. Recovery. You get a lot of us, especially in our culture, that's go, go, go. And not only are you going, you're going as hard as you can every single time. And I told my boys, just as hard as you go, you have to recover just as hard. You know, your body needs to bounce back. And when you allow yourself that recovery process, your performance is going to just elevate to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's why what you guys do at Off the Leash is so important, because this stuff is not common knowledge. You know, believe it or not, you know, I didn't know that non-negotiables were hydration and caloric intake and recovery, form, and these are things that all these things you guys teach and train for and educate at Off the Leash. So a big part of everything, right, what encompasses all this is, like Marcel mentioned a little bit earlier, is the champion's mindset. If your mindset's in the way, you're not going to be able to execute. So let's talk a little bit about what is the championship mindset and how do you cultivate that?
Man, you know, for me, you know, some of the thoughts I had thinking about this question was like, do you have, or will you do everything in your power to prepare to win? Like, are you willing to go there? Like, it's fine if you can accept that, you know, you play this sport like as a hobby, or you're cool playing, you know, D4, like, or D3, whatever, you know what it is. But when you're looking to have that champion's mindset and take it to the top in whatever division you're at, you have to not only cultivate within yourself, but cultivate within those that are on the field with you that got your back. You all have to have the will to win and believe that and do the work and believe each other has done the work too.
Yeah, I think champion mindset is a winning mindset, you know, and in order to achieve that, whatever your accolades are, you can have that mindset. And because we have so many pieces of the pie to our life, whether you're having a winning mindset with your family or your relationships or with your work, it has to be one of a healthy one. You know, you have to nourish the mindset so that it has the abilities to grow. And I think a good kind of like foundation for that is the acronym of HOW, and that's honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. You know, one, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest whether you want this or not. I think a lot of people pursue things that they're not completely bought in on. Yeah. So it's like you're not going to have a champion mindset if you're doing something you're not completely all in on, right? So you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with your peers, right? If this is a team sport, right? So if your team is on a different page than you are, then you're being a hindrance to them. You know what I mean? So that's not being a champion or a winning mindset. The open-mindedness is open to the possibilities. You know what I mean? I feel like you have to be a dreamer in order to be that winning mindset, because having an open mind is going to spark creativity. It's going to create a culture where people don't feel like they're trapped in one way. You have to be able to expand that, because we want to be greater than what our situation is now. And we're not going to get there by the same old rules. You have to be an innovator in that sense. And then what Marcel was just saying is the willingness. You have to show up consistently and be willing to do the work. And, you know, you can go as far as saying you do the work that other people aren't doing. Yeah. But that in the PTG podcast is like, you have to create this path. I think that comes with the innovator. You can listen to the other champions and what they do and take it, right, for notes and kind of resonate with it. But I would encourage to use it, turn it around, and then create your own story. You know what I mean? There, you can follow this easy 3-step path on how to get from point A to point B. but that's how they did it. And there's always a way. And it's, you're going to be much more of that champion if you do it in your own way. So I think that would be, like I said, just to reframe how, which is honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness.
Awesome. Well, I love what you guys are doing at Off the Leash. I know it's outside of paintball as well, but it's certainly, I know a lot of paintball players are coming to you guys to get peak performance on the field. And this is a game that we love. It's a game that's given us all a lot. So gentlemen, what are you guys most thankful for that paintball's given you?
For me, it'd be an ability to compete again. I really jumped back into the competitive world of paintball when I knew that my time within the military was coming to an end. And like I said, I'd played it before. I'd been competitive in my younger years. And it just kind of hit me. And so I jumped back in it. And honestly, it's just created for me just a healthy outlet for a physical drive that I haven't had really since college or the military. And I love it. And I love the trajectory it takes me. And so it's given me a lot of gold, and I'm trying to give it back too.
Right on.
I'll have to maybe answer it a little differently than what I guess normally would answer and stuff like that, just to think outside the box here, and definitely identity. I think paintball gives me that sense of identity, right? Gives me that sense of who I am, and this is my passion, and this was one of the gifts that I was given to do on this earth. And in a time where I was at rock bottom and definitely lost a sense of my identity, paintball was the first thing knocking on the door to get me back on track. So I'm very thankful for that and what paintball has done.
Awesome. Where do we find you guys? How does someone join Off the Leash?
So you can either, you can also contact Marcel too. I definitely suggest going and following and following Marcel's IG, and you can reach out to him. But I guess the first one would be offthelleashlifestyle.com. We have a little form that you can fill out on the website that reaches out to us, and then we contact you after that. And you can also hit us up on Instagram. Mine is at Paddy Gleason. Just message me there. You can also message at Off the Leash Lifestyle, and then Marcel.
Yeah, my IG is pretty much just mblake_OTL.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time here. Is there anything that you'd like to part with for the beloved paintball community?
Don't be afraid to invest in yourself. Like, personally for yourself. Like, there's no negative to that. Sure, you lose money, you can always make more money. But your health, you've got one shot at this life, guys.
I just would, thank the listeners and thank all the supporters and the OTL community, Marcel, everyone that helps me make my dream come true. And we have a lot of fun doing it. We've built quite a community, and the culture that just cultivates within our community is admirable, I should say. And that's strictly because of the members. So I just thank everybody, and thank you for having us on, man. Automatic.
Thank you, gentlemen.